Okay, sorry about that, we had a bit of a technical issue there. I think it's working okay now. I assume it is. You guys should be able to see part 6. I'm just going to go back to my channel and make sure you can see it. Cool. Okay. So it's Sunday in Australia, it's about 1:50 or so, and I'm way behind on this build. And I haven't been feeling great today, so it's one of the reasons I'm starting a bit late. But let's just have a bit of a look at where we're up to with it and what's got to be done. So I guess first up, just to say that realistically it's not going to get finished today, which was the hope. Hit a few more obstacles than I expected, and if you watch live streams you already know that. But I'm going to continue with these live streams and during the course of the week or so and actually get this thing done, because I've already started this series of live streams. I feel like it's only right that I continue on until I get the model finished. So while you won't see the final one today, unfortunately, you will see some more progress and you will get to follow along as I continue to work on it. I had a bit of good news this morning. I thought I had run out of liquid mask, which was what I was concerned about with this covering up the landing light. And lo and behold, I found a complete bottle of it this morning. So that's really good news for the canopy masking. It means I can put it over that as well, not have to worry about that when I'm painting the bottom. And I also can use it for the navigation lights on the wingtips as well, which is good. Off camera, I tried to glue down this wing as best I could. It's an okay fit. Around the wing roots here is all right. It should, a little bit of a light sand, a little bit of filling, it should be fine. The front needs some sanding, but it's there. It's not horrible. The back did cause me some grief, and you can see there's a couple of spots there as it joins up into the fuselage where it's just not quite right. So we're going to have to do some sanding, a little bit of light filling to sort that out, but it could be worse. The bits I already had sanded and put the first coat of primer on generally were pretty good. So there's a little bit of a problem there, but yeah, generally speaking, wasn't too bad. So I'm happy with that. Paint's dried obviously on our air intake there, so I'm going to do some painting on the radiators in just a couple of moments and start getting that ready and let that dry. The other thing we did yesterday obviously was the propeller as well. So the game plan, at least for this build or this session, is going to be to do some of the detail parts and to try and finish off the assembly of the wing surfaces for the Spitfire. So we'll start off with this. Now when I'm doing some brush painting stuff, one of my preferred paints, which I've put down, as you do, and then have probably lost, there we go, is the Vallejo Metal Colour series. These are fine to spray as well, by the way, but I find them really good as a brush paint. In fact, I find them probably the best one out there as a brush paint. So I'm just going to put a bit of silver on those radiators as a starting point, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of weathering on them, detail on them once they've the paint's had a chance to dry a bit. You don't have to thin this paint either when you're brush painting, which is nice, and a little bit of it will go an awful long way, so you don't have to be too concerned about that side of things either. Just going to need a decent brush, I think, for this. I've got some other brushes somewhere. Where are they? Over here. No, come on. One might be fine. So I hope you've been enjoying the series. It's been interesting for me. I'm not used to working under these sort of deadlines to get models done, so I found it a bit, I won't say stressful, but I've certainly found it tiring and challenging. And it's changed my workflow because there are steps I've skipped past during the course of these videos, just simply for time. And so that's required me to go back and to use other techniques that perhaps I'm not as up to date on or as comfortable with as I used to be, because I haven't used them for a long time. But ultimately we did get there. Now with these, I'm not going to be super fussy about them because you're going to have to be looking at the model from a certain angle to even be aware that some of these details exist. So as long as the impression's there, I think we've done our job. We just got the silver in there. As I said, we'll just put a bit of a wash over it and it will look fine. Well, I think of it too. On this one here, the radiator here, you can't see the front one at all, basically. But you can see the back one there, so I'm going to have to do a bit of careful brush painting when the time comes to get that to look okay. But I'm going to keep moving forward with the project and we'll leave that till later. I've also been giving a bit of thought about how I'm going to weather this model. So you will be seeing me use the airbrush a bit more perhaps than some modelers do. And you'll also see probably a little bit of oil brush weathering as well at some point. And how to do the camouflage, because I thought I had a camouflage mask but I don't, so I'm going to have to give some thought about that, and I'm thinking about using the instructions and blowing them up to make some paper masks, but again, we'll see how we go. Alright, so I've just painted those. So I'm just going to leave them aside to dry for a little bit. This paint, by the way, is an acrylic paint, so you can wash your brushes in water, which is nice. And then we can sort of sit down and have a think about the assembly sequence and also the priming and things like that as well next. So let's start by reviewing the instructions, see what we've got to do. Still a few things left to do, as you know. Okay, so when we left the paint guide, we don't need that just yet. Alright, so at this point we've gone ahead and assembled the wings, so we've done all these steps here. Going across the page, which is where we're up to basically. Let me just zoom out a little bit, so it's a bit easier to see. We now see that we've made it to two parts. We've also put the winglet tips on, and so really the focus now is going to be on building the tail, then the other arms for the wings themselves. Then we're onto the air scoops and radiators and so forth, which we've already made a start on, but we need to finish that off. We've got the landing wheel. I'm not sure, tail wheel I should say. I'm not sure whether I'm going to put that in just now because I think that's, there it is there. That's a bit vulnerable to being damaged while we're doing things. But it will, about this point, we'll have to have a think about that. Then of course we've got the landing gear, which is going to be down in the aircraft I'm modelling, so while we won't be affixing it to the model yet until I finish the painting, I will be thinking about the priming and whether there's some sub-assemblies I want to do. Similar here, I have made a decision around the guns. Although the guns will be vulnerable to being broken off, I'm just concerned about how well they're going to fit. So I am kind of leaning towards putting those on before we do the painting, but I'll see how they fit and maybe make a decision there. Now, as far as the actual canopies and stuff goes, I have to make a decision there as well. I've decided to make a closed up canopy, but I have to mask the canopy. You can see this canopy frame I've got to think about, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. I'm actually thinking at the moment that I'm just going to put some masking tape over the whole canopy just to block out the interior so I can put the primer on and some of the colours, because I don't think I'm going to get the top colours on today at all. So even if I just block them out so that we avoid any risk of overspray for today, that will get me out of trouble, and then I'll have to come back and do up the canopy frames properly. Also, I can't really fix them permanently at the moment because there is going to be some overlap here. You can see it sort of, they sit over things, and I need to actually get the paint done first, the primer and that kind of thing, before I fix them down. So anyway, that's where we're up to. It doesn't look like it's that much, but there is still a heap of painting and stuff to do, so I'm realistic about what we're going to be able to pull off. But we'll get started with doing the tail of the aircraft. So I'm just going to find the right sprue. There we go. And we can start thinking about doing some assembly here. So if you're watching this later, I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are on this kit. Have you built this one before? Is it? Am I having a similar experience to you, or were you able to get through it a lot easier than I am? Maybe you've got more experience with doing the modern Airfix kits than I have too, which I guess would help. But just curious, because it's been interesting. It's not a horrible kit, don't get me wrong, but it's just interesting that it feels like someone who's designed it. Was pretty excited about it, and wanted to do some interesting new things, and kind of didn't quite pull it off. That's what it feels like to me. It doesn't have a feel of a kit that's been done by someone who's very experienced and has worked out all the tricks of what works and what doesn't work and all that kind of thing. But there is definitely signs in this kit of someone who's designed it who was being quite ambitious about what the goal was as far as what they could recreate in plastic and in respect of detail and things like that. And I think the model, once you get past some of the construction challenges, it's a pretty decent representation. Things like this are interesting too, because you notice here, these two parts have got to go together. There is no pins or whatever. Now I know a lot of models don't like having pins. I feel that it's more trouble than it's worth, and it probably is. I'm just making the observation that for years and years and years, Airfix would make kits that always had very clear pins and stuff on them to try and line things up, even if they weren't always 100% successful at doing that. Whereas this kit has just stepped away from that completely and gone, no, we're not doing that, which again I find really interesting. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think my Tamiya glue is getting very low, so I may have to get some more. Or if I got more. Oh yeah, I actually have got more. I remember I bought some last order I did. Okay. And again, oh for goodness sake, I put it on the wrong side. The reason I like using this stuff, if I put it on the right side, is it just doesn't dry out instantly, so I have a bit of time to play with it and line things up, which particularly as these don't have any actual indicators other than just by eyeballing it. That's kind of important. So we've got the front surface here, and that's really what we're lining up with. Okay, this one done. Move that over there. Spitfire's interesting aircraft. I mean, they're basically an interceptor, able to get up off the ground quick and intercept whatever's flying over that's kind of trying to do you harm. And obviously they did that spectacularly well in the early stages of the war. They did come to Australia. We did have a few of them towards the mid to sort of late part of the war, but I don't think they were ever really the darling of the RAAF. Some of the limitations, they were a little bit fragile for some of the sort of locations that our Air Force were fighting, and they also had problems with the range, I think, was the other big issue with them. So they just sort of, what made them perfect for the UK, where they could get up in the air quick because they were relatively light, intercept the incoming bombers or fighters, and then get back down, re-equip, resupply, and then be back up in the air. That worked brilliantly for that kind of situation. But in Australia, where you had longer distances to cover, and you didn't have a lot of air bases between those distances. They didn't quite work as well, but they were out here and stationed up in Darwin as basically as a part of Australia's defence up there. And then the American fighters, which was predominantly the P-40 Kitty Hawk, was used as the aircraft of choice in the Pacific. And I think that was more because it just was better suited to those kind of conditions where things were very rough. And it also had the necessary range, and it just was easier for them to maintain it in those sort of extreme kind of circumstances that it was in. But we did get some Spitfires with some quite spectacular markings on them, which I believe Airfix had just released a 1/24 scale kit, and the cover is actually one of the Australian Spitfires with a grey shark colour scheme on it. The other aircraft I'm aware that, talking about this scale, that actually comes out with Australian markings is the Mustang. I think Airfix has got a version out with Australian Mustangs in Italy. So it's basically the English late war colour scheme like we're doing here on the Spitfire, with just some very slight variations, but basically that's what it is. You can get those as well. Okay. So according to this, now that we've got that done, and somehow I've managed to lose a whole plane. There we go. There we go. Alright, so according to this, we're now ready to think about attaching these. No, we're not. We're ready to think about attaching. I think. Now, are these keyed? Not really. Again, that's kind of interesting. Looks nice though. It's good to see. Yeah, so the other thing about the Spitfire, I guess, is as much as I do respect it as a plane, and I respect it's how important it was in the history, particularly in Europe, I kind of have more of a soft spot for the Hurricane, if I'm honest. I feel like the Hurricane doesn't get the love that it deserves. As much as the Spitfire captured the imagination of the people during the war, and with good reason. It was not only a very effective aircraft, it was also an excellent tool as a propaganda tool, because it was extremely good at what it did, and it was very just very distinctive from this wing, particularly the early versions. So it just sort of symbolised that resistance beautifully. And in the hands of a good pilot, it was obviously a very capable aircraft. But I just feel the Spitfire, Spitfire was sort of like the glamour one, It was the Alpha. Everyone's eyes were turned to it, but the grunt work was all done by the Hurricane. And the Hurricane itself, flown by a good pilot, was not a pushover. In the early stages of the war, at least, when it was still very competitive against the German aircraft at the time. Where's the trim tabs? On the up. Trim tabs on the top. Interesting. So that's how you're going to line it up. Okay. Deal with that. And then we've got a small piece, C25. That's the base sprue. So we wonder if we find C. So it locks it all in. So this is C25. What's that going to do for us? Okay, that looks like that fits over the back of these elevators. I'll get them to fit in a sec. And then this guy's going to go over the top somehow. I think I better have my glue ready just in case this works. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see what it's doing. Alright. I can probably glue without that actually. Let's try and get the tail lined up while we've got a chance. Looking at, because of the way the copy went together, the actual control column is not in neutral, so it actually has got aileron and rudder happening. I think the elevators are pretty neutral, so even though you're probably not going to even see it, I'm thinking that I might actually, come on, just hold there for a sec, there we go. I might actually glue the rudder and the ailerons to try and at least look a bit like they match up with the control column. I think it'd be fun to do that. So we can just presume maybe there's a crosswind on the airfield, and they've moved the control surfaces to combat that. Yeah, okay. Just goes away. Has to be said, these little things do not help in a 48-hour build. just concerned about this going flying off onto the carpet because I can see it happening. There we go. You got it. Oh, okay. So it's designed to, in theory, to allow that to go up and down, I think. I really don't like those kind of features, so you can guess what I'm going to do. Particularly they're a pain when you're painting and the plane decides it wants to change pitch or something. So, yeah, no. Nice feature, Airfix. Sorry. Don't want it. Okay, and then we got the rudder, which I'm hoping is one piece. And it is. Good. These pieces are nicely detailed, I have to say. Which way do I need to have the rudder? Oh, yeah, we can have it at a bit of an angle. Very good. Just put a bit of glue on that first, I think. Make it look a bit more interesting anyway, just have it at an angle. If it'll stick. I'll try this one. rudder pedals. I'll put on that, I think. Just trying to think, so we got that way, it'll be wing down and swing up, and then, yeah, so it'll be like it's going against the crosswind. Okay, if I remember right. It's been a lot of years since I had to do that. Right, so that's step 30 done. And now we're on to doing the ailerons, D20, D21. This one, 21. I do like them. They fit nicely. They look really detailed too. The wing detail is quite good. Okay. Okay, let's think about that. So it's up on the left actually. Just check that. God, my flight instructor would be horrified. In my defence, I was about 18, and I'm 60 now, so that's been a while. So that'll be up. Which means this one will be down. It'll be about the same proportion. I don't want to get too carried away with the up down thing. looking at the control column, it probably should be fairly extreme. That'll do. Yep. Alright. So that's basically going to be set up like it's got a crosswind and it's parked on the ground with a crosswind. So the rudder's slightly to the right, left aileron up, right aileron down slightly. That's what we'll go for. Don't normally do that with planes, but you know, just make it visually a bit more interesting, and since the Airfix have made that so easy to do, why not? Run a bit more glue there just in case. Now, so we don't bump it around too much while it's drying that, I've got these things here, which is my little aircraft stand. These actually work really well, surprisingly well, and I can just put it like that, and I'll leave that like that for a moment, let it dry. And back to our radiator. That's pretty much good to go, so we'll just put a little bit of weathering on that. Nothing too fancy. We'll just use the old-fashioned, but still very handy, to me, a panel line. And just put a dab on that. So it just makes it look a bit more interesting if you happen to squeeze in there. And the other thing we'll do, which is probably overkill, but since we're on a roll, I'll walk through my little stash here. There we go. I'm going to use one of these Tamiya weathering powders. Which is one light gunmetal, it's called. I'm just going to dab it on a couple of spots just to sort of make the silver a little less glossy. Look, she's got a bit of wear and tear. The panel line hadn't dried quite enough. So put that back on. Alright, so there we go. And that's ready now to be put on the aircraft. So we'll start looking at the bottom of it. If you recall from yesterday, I actually had already painted part of the final colour. And my thinking behind that is this guy here can now go into place, and we can glue that in. And we already have the radiators painted inside, and it's got the right colour, and then I can just put some sponges or something in there to block those points that we can get the paint in, so when we do paint the underneath we won't get overspray inside, and that way when you poke your head in, if you're really keen and look down there, you'll see a radiator that's silver and shiny and not body colour. That's the theory. Was it worth the effort? Probably not, but it's never stopped us. So I think we'll just use capillary reaction for this. It's going to hold it in place. Grab some glue. Just hold them all for that bit. And then all being well, if you can see it, yeah, you can just see the radiator in there. Okay. What else have we got to do here? Now the other bit I've been dreading, but I think we need to tackle it. It's going to be the front paneling underneath the engine, which with all these kits is in two parts. I understand why they do it that way, but always means you end up having to do sanding and stuff. Okay, let's do a quick dry fit. Can you go in there? Really? Interesting. It doesn't fit. Make the hole a bit bigger. If that doesn't work, we'll just have to kill the pin. Oh, I think something went wrong with the moulding there. That definitely does not fit. Alright, so we're going to have to kill the pin. There's some sort of moulding fault there. It's just not not going to cooperate. I think the back pin's okay. Yeah, the back one was okay. Okay, and then that's going to fit in the front. So it is actually partially supported by the front, so this is going to be, I think we'll just use a standard glue with this one. I'll use that one. Really just need to get a bit of glue to hold the two parts long enough to get it in place, and then we can line it up. And then we can hope for the best sort of thing, like so. That's the wrong part. That's the, what have I done? That's a desert. I bet I picked the wrong part because I'm too tired. D32. Yeah, it'd help if I used the right part. That's the filter for the North African ones. This one's got a little bit of a fault too. So obviously that particular screw or tree didn't come out of the mould completely well. We'll see how much we're going to be impacted by it. Not too much. I can get away with that. Bit of filler. It's a little bit short shot at the front. But these are the sort of things that are going to slow me down. I have to now do a little bit of repair work. I dare say the Sherman would have been quicker to do than this, but I didn't have the 148 scale Sherman. Perhaps I could have done something else. Anyway. Okay. So I think at this point I've got the undercarriage obviously to do. I've got some bits and pieces there to do. The wheels look like they're not going to be too challenging, which is good. I'm not going to worry about putting brake lines and stuff like that. I do need to put some paint on the exhaust, and I'm worried about those cannons on this model because I'm worried they're not going to fit very nicely. So I'm probably going to fit those to it, I think. And at that point, this model's pretty much ready to be sanded and some filling, and Jen will just check if all the parts, a little bit of light rescribing perhaps in one or two spots. And then I can think about putting some primer over it and seeing what we're working with. I did originally paint these silver, but I didn't think that through, because obviously later on I had to build the rest of the wheel wells, which are not silver, so I'm going to have to prime them. So the moral of the story is I'm going to have to redo them. That's no big deal. Plane's starting to look like a Spitfire now, at least. A little bit more solid. So let's have a look at these cannons, so I can see what I'm dealing with. Find them. What's the part number? D15 and D14. So let's see. It's supposed to be back on this one again. Oh, yeah. Chunky looking thing. Yeah, normally I wouldn't do this because of the risk of breaking them off when you're sanding and painting, but I just have a feeling they're not going to fit that great. And so I'd rather know now than paint all the wing, make it look lovely, and then find that I've got a big gap when I try and put these on. And yeah, again, this is probably something a lot of modelers would replace with aftermarket ones, brass or something. But in the spirit of this being an out of the box build, exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so this is 21. So according to the instructions, this should be, that's not 21, what's this, D15 was it? Sorry, D14. This should be on the left. Okay. Let's see how we go for fit. Would it fit better on that side, is it? No, so it's clearly that side. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling good that I'm doing this now. I think we can probably blend them in a little bit better. I mean, they're slotting in there okay. I guess that's something. Oops. Which way around do they go? Yep, go that way. Actually, with a bit of glue, they sit better. Okay. Yep. Well, actually went in better than I was expecting. A little bit of glue to soften the join, and they sat in there quite nice. So I'm happy enough for that. Alrighty, so I think at this point I'm going to leave that to dry for a little bit, let the glue sort of set. Oh, I've really only got a couple of small parts to do, I think, at this point. The exhaust certainly is something I want to put some attention onto. And then it's really going to be sanding and prepping that. So I might stop the stream at this point because I don't think there's much else I can do really until that's sort of dried, and I'll go and get some lunch. And then I'll come back and do another recording this afternoon where hopefully we can put some sanding and filling and then put some primer on it. Alright, until then, I'll sign off. Thanks if you're joining me. There's a couple of guys on now. Thanks very much for coming along and watching. And yeah, we'll be along with the part 7 a bit later today.